In Responsibilities of a Chieftain, Attila discusses attributes we might expect from leaders.
The Hunnish horde adapted a new spirit of unity during the reign of Attila. He had applied seemingly simple principles to unite the tribes into a strong nation. No longer would the Huns be tribes of nomads rambling through the countryside in search of monetary gain. They had a new direction. They would rule the world. Now, under Attila, the barbarians so dreaded by the empire and even by faraway nations had a strategy for their wanderings. Attila, with his magnetic force, influence, and charm, was so awe-inspiring to his warriors and chieftains that some of them worshipped him as a god. His power became so prevalent a force during his reign that chieftains, not wishing to offend him and face his fury, would simply yield to him without the slightest resistance. By way of fulfilling the obligation of his title, Attila exhibited patience, not haste, and never showed a lack of prudent judgment. His plan had been formulated over the years. It was a calculated scheme of sequenced events that resulted in Attila's short-lived but complete leadership over a nation of barbarians who for a time commanded the fear and respect of the world.
It has been my observation over the years that nations, tribes, and lesser bands rise and fall on the strengths of their leaders and on the ability with which those leaders carry out the responsibilities of office. The corruption of the Roman Empire is largely a result of the glamorous yet empty life its leaders choose to lead. They have lost their sense of national purpose and employ foreign armies to carry out the responsibilities of the Roman legion. They seek to gain office and stature by political maneuverings, choosing to cast aside personal standards of excellence. So their leadership is based on weakened foundations and shallow loyalties. Our leaders, you chieftains and valued warriors gathered here this night, must learn the responsibilities of office. As many of you are unschooled in what I consider to be the responsibilities of leadership, I now grant you my counsel on this subject. Chieftains are responsible for establishing the atmosphere in which they lead. This atmosphere may have periods of change, even as the seasons change. Nonetheless, unlike our lack of influence over the weather, our leaders can and must influence and control the spirit of our tribes. Leaders are bound by the traditions of office to establish and follow the order under which their Huns are judged, rewarded, punished, and constrained. Without such order, which is known by all Huns, the people will live in chaos. By their own actions, not their words, leaders establish morale, integrity, and a sense of justice to their subordinate commanders. They cannot say one thing and do another. Leaders must attach value to high standards of performance and have no tolerance for the uncommitted. Chieftains receive greater recognition and booty than their Huns. I therefore expect more from them than from their people. Chieftains and subordinate leaders must learn the responsibilities of their office. Without such knowledge, how can they fulfill their duties? Chieftains must teach their Huns that which is expected of them. Otherwise, Huns will probably do something not expected of them. Chieftains must make great personal sacrifice for the good of their Huns. Chieftains must understand that the spirit of the law is greater than its letter. Chieftains must never form selfish relationships and therefore take advantage of their subordinates, peers, or superiors. Chieftains must hold a profound conviction for duty above all other ambitions. You must leave this campfire council with one thought and one thought only. That is, success is the result of hard work that overcomes all forms of disappointment and moments of discouragement. Success is not achieved through complex strategies. It is achieved only through conscientiously carrying out the duties of your office and exercising the responsibilities of leadership. Nothing else will prevail.
Don't just sit there, do something. Most of us have heard someone in authority tell this to one of their subordinates, yet they themselves seem to have difficulty making decisions. In the Essentials of Decisiveness, Attila gives some wise counsel on when to act and when not to act.
Aquileia was an imposing sight. It was a bastion of Italy, resting high on a hillside and surrounded by water. Its walls were high and thick, and its gates were heavily reinforced. Aquileia was no stranger to invasions. Over the years, it had held against the Germans and various Asiatic tribes. Inside, a well-trained garrison fortified the perimeter. Its larders and magazines were kept sufficiently stocked to withstand long sieges. Its people were resolved not to surrender their vast treasures to any invaders, no matter how imposing. Coming off 2 previous swift victories against other fortified cities, the Huns became impatient with their siege of Aquileia. Food for man and beast became scarce. The horde was restless, ready to march on to Greater Italy. The conquest of Aquileia, however, was essential to Attila's plan to crush the empire. Morale became low. The tribal chieftains verbally challenged Attila's tactics. Dead horses were eaten, and rations were reduced. The Hun situation became more desperate with each passing day. Attila called his battle captains together in an evening council. He announced that the cost of the siege had become too great. They would bypass Aquileia the next morning. On the following day, taking a final look at the city he hoped to defeat another time, Attila observed a stork flying out of Aquileia, driving a young brood before her. It was destiny, an omen that would turn the course of events. Announcing that animals could sense things before men, Attila ordered his army to fulfill the prediction of this omen from powers beyond man's comprehension. Now, instead of bypassing Aquileia, they would attack.
Our seasoned chieftains have become wise through experience. They know when it is right to act and when it is best to wait. On the other hand, our young, ambitious Huns, anxious to demonstrate their skill, will rush headlong into actions that result in loss for them, their tribe, and perhaps the nation. Such rashness is unacceptable in those appointed to lead. All chieftains must learn that victory comes to the one who knows not only what to do, but when to do it. Now, I give you counsel for acquiring skill in decisiveness. Noble resolve to do the right thing is characteristic of prudent decision-making. Responsible decisions are difficult to improve upon. Wise is the chieftain who never makes a decision when he doesn't understand the issue. In decision-making, valor is guided by prudence. A chieftain should allow his subordinates the privilege of making decisions appropriate to their level of responsibility. Weak is the chieftain who reserves every decision for himself out of fear that he might lose control. Rarely are there perfect decisions. The best decisions are usually the more prudent of the logical alternatives. When you must be overly persuasive in gaining support for your decision, it's usually the sign of a bad one. Wise chieftains often find the critical elements for making the right decision in obscure places. The key is learning to find the obscure places and to recognize the critical elements. Skepticism is valuable because it delays premature decision-making. When a chieftain can't make up his mind, it's worthwhile to restate the problem. Chieftains grow to understand that the wisdom of a particular decision can change with time. Therefore, make every effort to improve future decisions by learning from those you've already made. It takes less courage to criticize the decisions of others than to stand by your own. You chieftains must make the extra effort and demonstrate rigor in developing a sense of decisiveness. Knowing by instinct or by absolute fact when the time is right for action will yield a high measure of success.
In the art of delegation, Attila emphasizes the wisdom enabling others to help you succeed.
It was necessary that Attila have assistance from his chieftains in order to attend to all of the responsibilities that demanded his attention. As king, he would not be capable of overseeing every action of his nation, its tribes, and its chieftains. He would require the genuine loyalty of trusted chieftains to whom he could delegate responsibility. Risk in delegation was high, but without accepting such a risk, Attila would have been destined to rule over only the tribe of his royal family, and his greater ambition to unify the tribes into a powerful nation would have been lost.
Our nation cannot prevail as the dominant world power if its leadership is contained to one man. Even I, Attila, cannot accomplish for you what you are not willing to accomplish for yourselves. You must be willing to accept the responsibilities that I choose to delegate to you. At the same time, your responsibilities are too great for you to manage alone. You must trust your subordinate leaders to accept those responsibilities that fit their office. Judgment, experience, and the incumbent duties of office dictate the order of delegation. I cannot supply counsel that applies to each act of delegation. Nonetheless, I can provide counsel useful to you in the act and art of delegation. Chieftains should never delegate responsibilities necessitating their direct attention. Those actions that don't require a chieftain's direct handling are appropriately delegated to the one most able to fulfill the assignment. In delegating assignments, wise chieftains grant both authority and responsibility. Realize that a chieftain cannot accomplish every responsibility of his office by himself. Should he prove otherwise, a leader should understand that he is in fact chieftain over little or nothing at all. Subordinates will never develop their skills if their chieftain precisely directs them on how to accomplish their delegated assignments. A wise chieftain expands his influence and ability to serve the nation only through the art of delegation. This principle is central to your success as chieftains.
Effective compensation and benefits policies are the mark of today's leading organizations. Although it may appear to have been practiced in a primitive way by the King of Huns, it's certain that Attila understood that paying for performance was to his advantage. We hear him discuss behaviors and rewards in Booty, Rewarding Your Huns.
Long hostages of a nomadic life, dependent for survival upon whatever booty they stored in their chariots, the Huns were inspired by the glory and spoils gained from their deeds as fearless warriors. Attila understood these customs. He knew the Huns were driven by intrinsic desires so strong that they would often become mercenaries for foreign nations and march in campaigns against even other Huns, simply to enjoy the spoils of war. His role was to harness this desire for short-term gain, to use discipline in the distribution of booty as reward for energy spent for the good of the Hunnish nation.
Booty has become a powerful force that ignites the spirits of our warriors, driving them to commit their talents to any nation that bribes them into service. You, as leaders of your tribes, and I, Attila, as king of Huns, must turn this lust for booty to the advantage of our nation. We must be more disciplined, rewarding Huns who willingly give their services, either in or out of battle. For this purpose, I issue guidance on rewarding your Huns. Never reward a Hun for doing less than is expected of him. Otherwise, he will doubt your sincerity in rewarding appropriate acts, and even worse, expect reward for performing deeds for which you hold no approval. Never reward a Hun for every act completed correctly. Otherwise, he will not act in your absence, or without the certainty of recognition. Grant small rewards for light tasks. Reserve heaps of booty for dangerous, gallant, substantial effort and worthy accomplishment. Teach your Huns that the booty of battle is nothing more than wages for their service. Heaps of booty, promotion through the ranks, and recognition as being a mighty warrior are reserved for those who go beyond the normal call of duty. Never give a Hun a reward that holds no value for yourself. Be generous with small tokens of appreciation. They will multiply in returned loyalty and service. Now, I cannot provide counsel as to the appropriateness of every reward for every situation. You, as chieftains, must develop your own judgments based upon these principles into a system of disciplined rewards that will command the loyalty of your Huns.
The Bones of Caravans Past. Lessons learned provide some penetrating insight for leaders who desire to learn from history.
Because he had lived so long among them, Aetius knew the mind of the Hunnish warrior well. He had prepared all his life for the moment in which he could use this knowledge, and that moment finally came at the Battle of Chalons. Before the fighting started, Aetius employed delay tactics, knowing that deceptiveness as to the moment and place of the main encounter would irritate Attila and would weaken his army's morale and determination. Frustrated by the delay of battle, the Huns finally charged in mid-afternoon. The earth shook as thousands upon thousands of warriors pounded the ground, tearing headlong into battle. The dazzling brilliance of the Hunnish horde's performance on past battlefields proved to be no match for the more disciplined, better equipped, and well-trained infantry under Aetius' command. By nightfall, the Catalonian plains were littered with the bodies of over 300,000 slain Huns. Attila's lifelong nemesis had dealt his army its only defeat.
The dreaded enemy, led by Aetius, used tactics unfamiliar to our noble warriors on the Catalonian plains. Many of our brave Huns were lost in a battle for which I simply had not prepared them to fight. Ours was a plan more aligned with past victories. Our discipline and patience wore thin under the provocation of Aetius' stalling tactics. Our fury was prematurely unleashed, which led to our suffering defeat. We are unaccustomed to losing. We are winners. We must examine the now sun-bleached bones of our lost warriors. We must regroup and emerge with renewed vigor and purpose, and return to deal defeat to our enemy. Now I, Attila, must relay to you the learning I accumulated in my study of the bones of caravans past. We must refrain from charging prematurely and furiously into unfamiliar situations. We must be prepared for new tactics employed by the enemy. We must watch him closely, using our intelligence to detect and assess his likely methods. When we are outfitted in battle dress and armament of inferior utility, we must never engage an enemy. Future battles with the Romans demand us to cover our leather helmets with metal, to reinforce our bodies with metal breastplates, and to carry shields to turn away the blows of their swords. We must use newly forged swords and cast aside our obsolete stone axes. Our skill as cavalrymen must be supplemented by newly acquired infantry skills. Training in these tactics will balance our abilities to wage war. We cannot expect to change our long-held traditions, to reorganize our army, and to create great cities without internal opposition. Among you chieftains and Huns will be those whose spirits cling to our past ways. We will show patience with you unenlightened ones. Yet if you choose not our new course and cause dissension, you will be stricken from our ranks. Our vision of the future must build on the strength of the past. Yet we must anticipate new challenges and opportunities. Suffering another battle of Chalons is unacceptable to me as your king and to our people, who depend on us, their leaders and warriors, to serve their interests and ambitions. We must never fail to stop and analyze the past. No bleached bone of a battle-lost Hun must go unnoticed as we prepare for the future by laying aside the ill-conceived and undisciplined strategies of our past. We must plan to once again and forever excel against all enemies and overcome obstacles that stand in the way of our conquering the world.
Overcoming setbacks. Having the ability to bounce back from defeat and disappointment is vital to leaders in our time. Attila rallies the dimmed spirits of his chieftains in Surviving Defeat. There is another day.
Though not unfamiliar with toil, struggle, deception, and other challenges that regularly attend leaders, Attila was unprepared for and unaccustomed to defeat on the battlefield. It was Aetius, his lifelong foe, who had so skillfully led the Roman legion at the Battle of Chalons, who tore Attila's mighty horde apart and caused them to retreat. In experiencing all of the inner turmoil accompanying great disappointments, Attila was suffering, as all responsible leaders do on such occasions. Yet drawing upon his inner strengths of dogged tenacity, determination, and extraordinary will, Attila marshaled his emotional stamina and regained control of himself.
I, Attila, king of Huns, have called this assembly of chieftains and mighty warriors together for the purpose of encouragement. My aim is to kindle the fires of your emotional stamina so that you may not become hopeless in the face of disappointment. Let these guiding principles for dealing with defeat be known among you. No chieftain will win every encounter. It matters not whether it be in tribal leadership or on the battlefield, nor how great or insignificant is the issue at hand. Sometimes you will lose, regardless of how prepared you are to win. Should you become aware that defeat on the battlefield or in negotiations is imminent, don't deny it. Face it, and take immediate action to minimize the opponent's gain. Retreat is noble when continuance with the battle or the issue at hand would result in further losses or total annihilation of your resources. In order to return on another day, you must salvage all the warriors and material possible. Momentary loss of self-worth, confidence, and determination are normal emotions that accompany personal loss. Learn that you must pass through this misery to rid your Hunnish spirit of its depression. Lament if necessary, but do not dwell too long on your bad moments lest they rise to rule your emotions forever. It is wise to consider all potentialities of battle and negotiation before entering into them. Rehearse them in your mind. Think of the consequences that may result from your actions. This will allow you to be better prepared for the worst outcome. It is a simple truth that the greater your accomplishments, the greater opposition, torment, and discouragement your enemies will throw in your path. Expect it. Don't become a victim of it. Let these insights to my secrets be fuel upon which you may ignite the fires of determination to regroup your ambitions into a successful plan on another day. For as long as a Hun breathes, all is not lost.
Settling differences is one of those frequent challenges leaders face. In Attila and the Pope, The Art of Negotiation, Attila discusses some of the cardinal principles associated with this process.
The Christian world held vast reverence for Pope Leo I. He was a man of God, a man of eloquence and culture. Attila's army was marshaled at Mantua. If Attila had his way, Rome would soon be in flames, her storehouses emptied, and her treasury pillaged by the horde. In the city, it was a time for urgent action. Valentinian, the emperor of Rome, called upon the aging pope to gather a company of priests, and then to proceed to Attila's camp and sue for peace and the sparing of Rome, the last stronghold of the empire. The tactic dumbfounded Aetius. He knew Attila's army would fall as it had at Chalons if the empire would but stall. Aetius, however, was not consulted, and Valentinian's plan was put into action. On the other side of the impending battle, Attila was hesitant. He feared another defeat by the Romans. Yet his fury was fired by the humiliations he had suffered in his youth. His oath, taken silently as a child, was to someday destroy the palace, triumphal arches, and churches in Rome. Soon after the Huns began their march to the city, a scout rode swiftly to inform Attila that the procession mistakenly thought to be the Roman legion was nothing but a procession of priests. It was being led by an old man with a white beard, dressed in white upon a white steed. Calling a halt to the horde's advance, Attila, atop his gallant charger Willem, rode forward with a few warriors to inquire into the nature of this unexpected delegation. Halting his warriors on the banks of a river, Attila challenged the stranger as to his name. Leo was the reply. It was Attila who rode through the stream to approach this unusual emissary of the Roman court. There, on the far bank, Attila and the Pope held a council whose content has never been revealed. For whatever reasons history or legend may give, it was the destiny of Rome to be spared. For after a time, Attila returned to his mighty horde and turned its march first northward and then back to their homeland in the valley of the Danube.
The techniques of negotiation are not easily taught. It is for both Hun and chieftain to learn skills useful in negotiating. These are mastered only through understanding gained by experience. Now, I give to all assembled my counsel on the leader's vital art of negotiation. Always maintain the diplomatic initiative in all negotiations. Be on the offense always. Never lose contact with your enemy. This will place him in a lesser position, and you will have the upper hand. Always negotiate at the lowest level possible. This will serve to resolve small things before they grow out of proportion and make negotiating impossible. Never trust negotiation to luck. Enter every session armed with knowledge of the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Knowing his secrets makes you strong and allows you to better deceive him as to your ultimate goals. Keep negotiations secret. They must be conducted in private, even as I did with Pope Leo. Only the policies should become public knowledge. How they were negotiated should remain confidential, saving loss of face. Never arbitrate. Arbitration allows a third party to determine your destiny. It is a resort of the weak. Never overestimate your own negotiation skills. You may simply be negotiating with a weak opponent. Though fortuitous, this will not always be the situation. Honor all commitments you make during negotiations, lest your enemy fail to trust your word in the future. Be bold in facing the inevitable. Submit when resistance would be pointless, or when your victory can be gained only at too high a cost. Of this you may not approve, but it is your duty to do so for the good of all Huns. Remember this time together, in order that you may always exact negotiations for the betterment of our nation as we roll toward our destiny to conquer all before us.
Preparing the organization for transitions in leadership is a skill often lost on leaders with a short-term or selfish view. Although he, like some notable corporate executives in our time, wasn't succeeded by anyone of his own ability, the King of Huns talks to his chieftains about succession and leadership transition in Ashes to Ashes, departing with nobility.
His death came unexpectedly. It happened at a time when he was about to lead his reorganized and formidable army into a new quest to conquer the empire. Attila was dead. His warriors and chieftains were stunned. Women wept. Children feared. Their noble king was gone forever. The Hunnish nation had prematurely lost its central figure of unity, pride, and leadership. As thousands sang mournful songs and shouted in despair, the funeral wagon was led to the gravesite by 12 black horses, preceded by a riderless Willem, saddled and draped with black cloth. The royal family, nobles, chief warriors, and Huns followed the coffin on foot. Joined by people from allied nations, some having traveled as long as 3 days, the sea of mourners carried thousands of torches as the sun descended in the western sky. Then, with a roll of drums, Attila was laid to rest. A legend was gone. In the future, his name would be held in both high esteem and contempt. But he would long be remembered for his deeds as Attila, King of Huns.
Being assigned to any position of leadership over our Huns or tribes is gratifying. Worthy leaders fill the void between what Huns can do without a leader and what they can accomplish with one. Each chieftain is unique, marked by his mannerisms and his personal commitment to fulfill the obligations assumed in accepting his office. It is soon after a new chieftain is appointed that he will either grow or diminish in the eyes of his subordinates, peers, and superiors. If he is prudent in the application of his authority, demonstrates a spirit of commitment, and sees to it that all obligations are met, the chieftain will enlarge his stature. As time passes, it is the tendency for both Hun and chieftain to cloud their objectiveness, and fail to remember that the incumbent in any position of leadership is subject to transitory assignments. Either a new assignment, old age, or death will eventually remove even the most tenured and greatest chieftain from his office. It is a tender moment in the lives of all who have developed strong bonds of loyalty and dedication when the former chieftain passes on and a new one is appointed in his place. This transition of leadership, influence, and power must be made with the skill of diplomacy and protocol to serve the good of the Huns, the tribe, and the nation. It is the wise chieftain who prepares himself for the eventual moment when his time has passed and a new chieftain is about to take charge. This preparation should be made over time to avoid precipitating insecurity, loss of commitment, or dissipating confidence. It is noble for the departing chieftain to express gratitude to all who have served him well, especially recognizing ways in which they have made him stronger and more resilient. It is noble for the departing chieftain to voice his confidence that the new chieftain will serve his Huns well, perhaps even improving their conditions. This expression, even if offered in a token fashion, reduces moments of insecurity and worry for the Huns who remain. It is noble for the departing chieftain to leave his command forever, never attempting to return by influencing the Huns he once commanded. In doing so, he would subvert the leadership, authority, and responsibility of the new chieftain. Such action by the old chieftain would be destructive, even if invited by seemingly innocent appeal from Huns who once trusted his counsel. Every appeal of this nature should be denied, and the former chieftain should reaffirm his commitment to the new one by directing the Huns to seek counsel from their rightful leader. If departure should come prematurely, without warning or preparation to receive a new chieftain, tremendous confusion will reign in the camp. This is the most difficult situation for all. Those who rank highest, the senior Huns and chieftains, must quickly form a council and choose a new leader. For in dire circumstances, our Huns look to their chieftain for strength, courage, and direction.
Time passed in the valley of the Danube, but there was no successor of Attila's capability. No chieftain or prince emerged after his death who possessed the richness of his views, nor the depth of his commitment. The Huns became divided again. Most of the tribes resumed their nomadic lifestyle. Battles were lost, and the once strong nation was absorbed into Greater Europe. The vanity of the princes and chieftains who jealously sought to succeed Attila resulted in the downfall of the nation. Their first concerns were their own interests. They had simply failed to learn from Attila. It still remains to be seen whether or not you make the same mistake.
This has been a Nightingale Conant production for Simon & Schuster Audio.